and welcome to your practice. I'm Jessy, and this is going to be a class to help you prepare for animal flow. Now, before we even start, you don't need to prepare to come to an animal flow class, but I hear a whole lot from people that they're a little intimidated, that they don't know if they'll be able to do it. So I'm making this class for you as a way to kind of show you some things that you can practice before you come to your first class, or at least test out to see how it works in your body. So the very most important thing that we want to be ready for class with is our wrists. We want our wrists to be able to bear our weight. We want them to be warmed up, prepared for loading our tissue. So we're going to spend a lot of time there. Let's start there. Come on up to a tabletop position, so our hands and our knees. Set your hands so that they are right underneath your shoulders, your fingers nice and spread. And we're going to slowly just rock forward and backwards. As you do this, I want you to try to press your entire hand nice and even into the ground. Now, if you encounter any tenderness, any pain, I don't want you to move into that. And probably that's the further forward you go. So you might be only coming to where your shoulders are over the wrists, or you might be able to move a little bit forward beyond the fingertips. It's entirely up to you. Toes, doesn't matter if they're tucked or not. I tend to do mine just out of habit. Just slowly starting to practice loading weight into the wrists. And then you can do also a little bit of side to side movement. Maybe make some circles. And then at some point I can get you to pause and turn your hands so that your fingers point out to the sides of the room. Again, nice flat hands against the ground. All of the skin on the palm and on the fingers is touching the mat. You're going to do the same thing here. Rock, maybe try forward and back, maybe try side to side, maybe move in some circles. Now, wrist prep can take anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes, and it's really dependent on the individual and on the day. So for myself, because I practice this on a regular basis, most of the time I don't need very much time to warm up my wrists, but there are occasions where I have spent time out in the garden or working on my computer that I need longer to get ready for class. So do not rush this part. If you even need to pause the video, restart the video so you do a second round through this wrist movement, wrist warm up before you start, then please do. And then one last thing, I'm going to get you to turn your hands all the way around so that your fingers point back towards your knees, and then also bring them a lot closer to your knees so they're almost touching. This time do tuck your toes under, and slowly you can start to sit back towards your heels. So you can stay here if you want in that stretch, or you can move slowly in and out of it by rocking forward and back. So hopefully finding stretch both in our toes and in our feet, maybe our calves, and then also in our hands, wrists, and forearms. Gently come forward, turn those hands back around, and you can come off of your knees, have a seat. So before you shake your hands out, anything like that, just pause and notice them. So they've been in one position for a while, so desire to change that position, completely normal. One of the most powerful tools we use in animal flow is a position called wrist relief. And that's where we bring backs of the hands together, fingers point down to the ground. The wrists, if they are slightly above the elbow, will be a more intense stretch, and if they are slightly below the elbow, will be a little less intense. So you might even want to raise and lower. And then something that I kind of like to add on to this is turning your fingers, keeping the elbows in position so the turn is just happening at the wrists. So that can be a really powerful way to unload that feeling of, oh, I just want to shake my hands out, without actually giving that big shake to the hands that tends to really just disrupt the tissue anyways. Next thing, we're going to interlace our fingers. This one is just as much brain work as it is body work. We're going to do a roller coaster. So right elbow up, and then right wrist up, and then your right elbow starts to come down as your knuckles go up, and then your left wrist goes up, and then your left elbow. Simple, right? We got this. So start slowly moving through that wave. So starting to get a little bit more movement into the shoulders and the elbows, still getting the wrists more warmed up. And then we're going to change direction. Left elbow, left wrist, knuckles, right wrist, right elbow. So again, moving. This is a move that sometimes people find that they get going, they're fine, and then they realize that they're actually just doing one side, because one side tends to be a little more challenging on the brain. Good. Release that. Keep the fingers interlaced and touch your thumbs to each other. From here, straighten your elbows forward, trying to keep the fingers together. The thumbs are going to prevent you from going all the way out. Try to keep the palms aimed towards the ground. So we're looking for a stretch in this kind of lateral aspect of the wrist, or perhaps in the fingers. Good. And release it. You can gently wiggle, move your fingers around. Have a seat with your knees bent. You can have your feet about hip distance apart, and then you're going to take your hands and, if possible, turn them so that your fingers point backwards. You heel of the hand points towards the hips. The hands, if possible, are also shoulders distance apart. Now, occasionally this body position in hands, because it requires a whole lot of length through the tissues from the chest all the way to the wrist, can make your fingers a little bit tingly. If that happens, letting your fingers turn a little to the side will help a whole lot, but we don't want the hand to turn all the way forward, because that tends to translate up into the shoulder, and then the shoulder rolls forward. And our intention in this is to start to open through the chest, open through the shoulder. So the most back that you can point your fingers, the better, okay? All right, still staying seated, we're gonna keep our bum on the floor here. I want you to flatten your, again, entire hand into the ground. So your hands are active, and they're always active when they're on the ground. Next, start to lift your chest. Pull your shoulder blades down your back. Feel those muscles work. Look up, bringing a little bit of stretch to the front of the body and work to the back. And then we'll do the exact opposite. Relax back down. Let your shoulder blades spread apart. You might even need to move your arms a little wider. That's okay. Let your shoulder blades spread apart. Tuck your chin and let your back round into that space between your arms. So you may notice, depending on your body, like I don't actually go between my arms, but I can feel the pressure of my body against the arms. And then again, same movement. Draw the shoulder blades together and down. Lift your chest, lift your sternum, lift your collarbones, look up. Take a breath here. And then again, release that, start to round. Round your shoulders, spread your shoulder blades apart. Round the front of your body so that you can feel stretched through the entire back. And release it, come on back up. So if you want to take a moment before we come into our crab position, just for that wrist relief or to wiggle your fingers around, just to be out of pressure on the hands, do so. Now, the next few pieces is entirely up to you how long you hold. You can take short breaks, and especially if you're new to this, you might need to. And the longer that you practice this, the less breaks I'm hoping you're going to need. So feet are still about hip distance apart. Hands, fingers point backwards. Set your shoulder blades slightly down. So I am pushing my shoulder blades down, pushing weight into my hand. I'm going to let my eyes travel just slightly up. So the cue is eyes to the rising sun. So we're not trying to keep our chin parallel to the floor, but rather keep our neck neutral in line with the rest of the spine, which means the eyes are slightly up. Now, from here, all I need to do, try to transfer weight evenly into my 2 feet, into my 2 hands, and lift my hips up. This is crab pose. Our hips are nice and evenly placed between the hands and the feet, and we're not sinking here, we are pushing. Push the floor down, push the shoulder blades down, let your chest open. You may only be able to stay here for a few seconds. You might already need a break, and that's okay. Or you might want to try a couple of lifts here. So transferring weight out of your right foot in a way that does not change the rest of the body, can you pick your right foot up? And you want it to stay nice and close to the ground when you do so. Let that weight settle into your glutes, into your arms. Good, you can set that right foot down and switch. Can you pick up your left foot? And you want to do that in the same way. Minimize any shifting or twisting that has to happen in your body. Try to stay nice and still. Good. And then that left foot can go down now. Same thing with the arms. This tends to be more challenging. You might need to shift. Can you get weight out of your right arm? Keep the elbow straight and lift the whole system, whole arm system from your hand to your shoulder. Good. Set that one back down. Other hand, same thing. Are you breathing? Good. You can set that one down and take a break. Take your wrist relief position. And like I said, it is very normal if you feel that big stretch, maybe even a neural component to it in the wrist and in the forearm. The intensity of that, if it is very minor and if it has already started to go away, is no big deal. Keep practicing. If it is more intense and if you are still feeling it, then practice, but in smaller amounts. So keep it short breaks in between sets rather than working up to a great big amount. Just practice it in small amounts, okay? So same thing as if you've gone out skiing or wakeboarding or trying to think of another very seasonal sport, something that you have not done in 6 months. The first time you go out, you're probably gonna take it a little easy, maybe not pull out your biggest jumps that you know how to do. Rest your body just a little bit more, don't go quite as long, and you're probably gonna be sore. This is very similar. Okay, next thing we're gonna practice is our beast pose. Come on up to a tabletop. We're gonna set our hands right underneath our shoulders. Fingers again, spread, and the entire hand pressing nice and even into the ground. Now there's an action we want to find at the shoulder here of external rotation. And what I mean by that is right up at the shoulder, it's like the arm is trying to turn out. The result is the elbow crease will aim more forward and you'll feel muscles stabilizing your shoulder in this position. So see if you can find that sense of shoulders rolling out, external rotation. The creases of the elbows roll forward and you can press into your index finger. So that is a really solid, stable system from your shoulder to your hand. We want that when we do our beast pose. Next piece, our neck hopefully is nice and neutral. You'll see me turning and looking at the camera or moving my head around. I want you to keep your neck long so you're not looking forward, you're not looking back at your knees, you're pretty much looking straight down at the line in between your fingertips. All right, next piece to think about, the position of our pelvis. So we do not want a big arch in our back, nor do we want that big round shape. We want to be somewhere that feels like we are right in the middle of those two positions with our pelvis. And then last thing that is a little bit different than our tabletop pose, instead of having our knees underneath our hips, we actually want to move them forward so our knees are underneath our navel. So that's just a small little change, like crawl those knees slightly forward. All right, now tuck your toes. Find that again, even distribution of weight between your two hands and your 2 feet, and lift your knees. Now we're trying to hover those knees about an inch above the ground. And if you find for whatever reason in your body, you're twisted, you've got one knee that's a little wonky, one ankle that's a little wonky, get the hips higher. You're gonna be able to do the same work here with a little less load in the legs. Now, having said that, come down, take a break. Having said that, when we get our hips a little higher, it is going to load more weight into your hands because it's taking load out of your legs. So if that means that you need more breaks, you can do that. Or if you stick with hands and knees down for now to practice things like the limb lifts, you can do that as well. You are still gaining the strength of preparing the wrists and the shoulders for that movement. You are still gaining the body awareness, and it's okay if you can't keep the knees up for a long time. All right, if you can, let's try some of those same lifts here. Find all of those beast positions. So externally rotated shoulders, Palms nice and flat, neck nice and neutral, pelvis nice and neutral, knees under navel, lift your knees. Got it? That's a lot of stuff. Okay, let's try the hands here again. Minimize your shift, but I understand you will probably have to shift some. Pick up your right hand. Hang out here, breathe. Good, you can set that right hand back down. Let's try same thing with the left. Again, minimize your shift as much as you can. Pick the left hand up. Good, left hand can come back down. Now let's do that left foot. All you do is point the toes. You don't change anything else. Good, and switch one last time. Here you'll see a little weakness in my left leg. I have to lift a little. If you have to lift a little too, it's okay. Good, and come on, back down. Take a break. Take your wrist relief position. So what we've covered here is a whole lot of warming up for the wrists. So far, two of the poses that you're going to see probably in every single animal flow class with our crab and our beast, and a way that we can practice strengthening in those positions. Let's take our hands here now. We're going to do magnetic bracelets. Touch the inside edge of your wrists together. Cross your thumbs across your palms and roll the inside edges of your wrists together, keeping them touching, meaning you'll have to straighten your elbows. Keep rolling so the backs of your wrists then touch. And then slowly you're going to bring the arms in and around and up so that you can come back to that start position, and the whole time the wrists stay touching. So keep moving through that magnetic bracelet movement. The whole time it's like you've got your big Wonder Woman cuff bracelets on and they are stuck to each other, so you are keeping those wrists touching. Go slow. Avoid painful ranges of motion. Keep it smaller than that. Cut the movement just a little bit shy of that range of motion if you notice pain. Good. And then at some point that makes sense to you, pause and change direction. Excellent. Good, and release it. So again, if your wrists need a little bit more and you know stretches to do for them, take them. If wrists are kind of feeling like, yeah, they did some things, they're kind of cranky, that's right, they just did some things. So it's normal to feel tissue that has just worked. We just sometimes, especially with areas like our wrist or our low back, we tend to get a little freaked out when we feel them. So it's okay if your wrists are feeling like they did some stuff. Your body might be feeling like it did some stuff. That's great. You can practice these moves before you come to your first animal flow class, and that will really be all that you need to do. Although I promise, even if you don't practice these moves, you're going to do great in animal flow class. Every single piece that I teach in that class is taught for a beginner level. So even if you're looking at me posting flows and going, there's no way I can do that, I'm sure you can. I just have to teach you how. So, hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.